Well, thank you for that introduction. It was very impressive, and it does sound now like I did some great thing, which sets the tone perfectly for what I'm going to talk to you about. See, initially, I want to talk to you about motivation, how to achieve your goals, because you see, within the last year, I did achieve a big dream of mine to get admitted to Cambridge University, and in the process, I had to take these A-level exams and I had to get A stars in all of them. Well, in two of them. One of them, as Miss Flutorica said, had happened to be the highest score in the world. Um, and I had trouble thinking about ideas about that speech. How do you motivate yourself? Because people did ask me, well, Nadia, how many days a week did you study? How many hours a day? Did you take any memory pills? How did you motivate yourself? Well, how? So I wanted to talk about that, but I had trouble thinking about it and I was stuck. I missed all the deadlines for submitting all the materials because I realized at some point that those achievements were not mine. Well, if they're not mine, you're thinking, whose achievements are they? Let me tell you why. 10% of it was maybe me. 90% of it was others. Let's take an example. Let's take the highest score in the world for history. Let me tell you who achieved that. It was my parents who sent me to a school where I learned English well enough to read history books and write history exams in the first place. It was the teachers who helped me. It was the examiner who read the exam and thought that the exam deserved the mark. It was my sister who convinced me to take the exam in the first place. Now, let's go further. If you think about it, it was also the people who took lower marks than me. If they had taken a higher grade, I wouldn't have been the highest scoring person in the world. Then if we go even further, we realize it's also the people who could have scored higher than me but did not take the exam because they were either too poor, or they were discouraged, they were too hungry to think about exams, or they were killed in some war before they could even think of taking such exams. It was all those girls in Asia and Pakistan who could have been top scorers instead of me, but who were not even sent to school. It was, if we go even further and we start getting a bit abstract, it was all the people who died in bloody wars, who died crossing the Berlin Wall, so that books may be written about them, so that stories may be told, and exam questions be said about the reasons why they died. It was all those people who invented the internet and Google and spread knowledge so that all I had to do, actually, was open a web page and read them. But I was fooled for a time to think that it was me. Because you see, we people, we do have two great problems. Well, actually, we have more great problems, but two of them I'm going to speak about today. The first one is very primal. We're obsessed about ourselves. We live in this little box called self. And living in this box, after a while, it makes us think we're the most important people in the world. You see, it was just in the 15th century when people realized the universe wasn't actually rotating around the Earth. And this might sound a bit abstract, self-centeredness, but actually it's in every inch of our lives. We make friends because we don't want to be ourselves, to be alone. And we make friends that share our beliefs and values because we want to feel validated. We do charitable acts, partly because for their own sake, that's true. But also because we want to feel good and righteous and noble. You see, in the modern world, success is hailed as some sort of ideal, and that involves selfishness being an ideal too. All what success means today, money, making money, topping ranks, being famous in some way or another, causes this tunnel vision where the most important thing in the world is ourselves. Now I have an example from the University of Cambridge. There was this very famous professor. He was teaching constitutional law. He was the best in his field. All his students adored him. But we didn't get to be taught by him this year, because what happened was, just before the academic year, he gathered all his stuff and he left to become a priest. That made me think, besides being obsessed with ourselves, we have this problem of, of, of failing to see all the other components of social intercourse. We are focused on ourselves. We fail to see the experiences, the struggles of others. We do make connections. We do try to make connections with other people, but those are to serve some self-interest. We do not care about the connection itself. We care about what it would get us in the end. And this betrays the second great problem I was going to talk about, and that is the way we like to dismiss the experiences and lives of others. You see, from our little box called self, we do watch other people many times, but with a complete lack of empathy. We watch them, we look at them, but we don't see them. And in this, we ignore reality. We see our own reality. And well, there was a picture supposed to come up on the screen. It's not. Oh, there it is. There's a picture you see everywhere, like people, hungry people in Africa. Yeah, we try to be sad for a few seconds and then forget. The reality is that just today, 27,000 people died of starvation. That's a statistic. And same as the photo, we try to be sad for a few seconds and then ultimately we don't really care. And what I propose today is this exercise of imagination. Let's step out of the box of self and into the shoes of someone who's starving. Well, from first-hand accounts, we know this. First, your muscles start to weaken. You feel so weak, you tremble, that you have trouble standing up anymore, so you lie down. You feel starting getting cold inside. And then you feel your heart slowing, but sometimes it just pounds without control. Your joints start to fall out, start to move. That is because your body starts feeding on the tissue that's holding them together. But then the psychological torment is even worse. You start thinking about food all the time, so that it becomes your obsession, the greatest obsessions of all. Have you started imagining that yet? Well then, after a while, you start having cannibalistic dreams. You start dreaming about eating your own friends, your own parents. Well, I do see some people laughing. Well, that must be funny. And it's sooner than later, cannibalism starts to be a real-life option. Now, after we found all this and hopefully we start imagining just a little bit how it feels like, let's look again at the picture. And now we know the desperation in those people's minds. We know why they're so eager to get to the food. Well, that's just stepping into their shoes. It's not going to give you the complete feeling, but a bit of empathy. Now, another reality is that today, millions of people live in fear of their lives and the lives of those they love in war zones such as Syria. Now, again, we hear about that very often. We know, we've seen pictures of online. We maybe shared one of those pictures to do our share of spreading the awareness of what's happening there. But let's do the same thing. Let's step out of our box of self and into the shoes of these people. Start hearing the 12 bombs that fall each morning and start seeing how the sky lights up at night. Hear the shells thundering Part of your house is destroyed, so you live in the other half of your house. You start fearing that one day you'll be gone too, like the other part of the house, and your family will be gone too. Hear the windows rattling each day and night. Feel the dread of wondering whether one of your friends was in the range of one of those bombs. You start having nightmares, you wake up at night, sweating, fearing, and one day you lose a friend. We all know, I suppose we all know, at least to some extent, the feeling of loss. Start to feel it now. And each of the few times you step outside your house, you see red on the pavement. The destroyed pavement, actually. You smell the rust, that is the smell of blood, and you walk in fear through the rubble that is now that used to be your street, your neighborhood, and your city. Now, all of that, this exercise, not to make you feel sad or guilty somehow, is to make you aware. Because the more aware we are of each other's suffering, the less we are just 7 billion boxes sitting next to each other. And the more aware we are, the easier it is to end the suffering or to start acting to end the suffering. It sounds naive, maybe, that one day we stand up from our little solid boxes and look at each other, we humans of the world, and see that we are many and that we are together. Thank you.